Welcome back. We are here today in our second part of the 5-part series of the 5 protective factors. Today we will be focusing on building social connections because parents need friends too. So some of the questions we need to ask ourselves is, why are social connections important and how do we build them? During this series, we're hoping that you will be able to answer, we will be able to answer those questions for you and help build your social connections. Last week, or in our first series on building parental resilience, we talked about an oak tree. And I'd like to continue that thought as we watch this video about some oaks that have built some social connections.
We know more about how the natural world works than ever before. It's kind of a perfect storm for nature-inspired innovation. During Hurricane Katrina, you would have thought that the live oaks on St. Charles Street would have died, when actually only 4 out of over 700 trees died. Why is that? Well, the trees, it turns out, the whole thing is a blueprint for how to survive hurricanes. Their trunk is spiraled, so they flex in the wind, and their branches are spiraled, so they flex, and their leaves, when the wind hits them, they curl into the shape of a Fibonacci sequence, which allows the wind to flow through with minimum friction so that the leaves don't get torn off easily. And even more importantly, under the ground, its roots are actually entwined with the roots of the trees next to it. So when a hurricane hits a live oak in New Orleans, it's not hitting one tree, it's hitting a whole community. So perhaps in rebuilding New Orleans to be more hurricane resilient, instead of our individual pier foundations, we may think about foundations that have horizontal components that twine together with the foundations of the buildings next door, so that you've got the wind hitting an entire community of buildings and not just one. Architects and engineers are beginning to explore this in other places. They're starting to think like a live oak tree to design buildings and homes that are safer and more resilient. For more episodes of Think Like a Tree, subscribe to the Wired channel.
Gwen, I can't hear you.
Sorry. So, what can we learn from the live oaks about social connections? We can learn connections can help us stay strong during challenging times. And connections make us resilient. So, imagine the connections are like the intertwining of the roots from the oak tree. Our connections make us stronger because we can confide in others, we can find resources that we need, and it just makes us stronger as a whole.
So this next video helps us understand why social connections are so vital in our mental and our physical well-being. As you watch the video, I want you to take a note of why social connections are so important. What is the most important thing we can take away from social connections?
Think of the last time you spent with your family or friends or people you care about. How did this make you feel? Being connected with people in your life helps you feel like you belong. It even helps reduce stress, boost your immune system, lowers blood pressure, and can lengthen your life. In fact, people with strong social support are usually happier, have better mental health, and feel a stronger sense of belonging in their community. Unfortunately, people who feel alone or isolated often have poor health. In fact, new research shows that not having social relationships can shorten our lives as much as smoking over 100 cigarettes per week. But the good news is that we can all do things to change this and to help ourselves and others feel more connected. Let's look at an example. This is Sammy. He just moved to a new city and does not have any family there. Because his new job takes up a lot of his time, he hasn't made any close friends yet. He comes home from work most days and spends time by himself watching TV or on his computer. He misses having his family around and is starting to feel a little more sad and tired each day. So what can Sammy do to get better connected with others? Sammy can start by getting out and exploring his new neighborhood. Maybe he can check out his community center to see what activities they have there. He can have lunch or go for a walk with his new coworkers. Sammy loves cycling but doesn't know the area. He could visit a bike shop to see if there are neighborhood bike groups or look online for a bike group to join. Volunteering is another great way to get connected in your community. He could check out Volunteer Canada, the local newspaper, or local agencies to see where volunteer help is needed. Like most of us, there may be a time when Sammy needs a little more help. When moving to a new city, recovering from an illness, or going through a life change, calling someone you trust or talking to a mental health professional can really help. If available, Sammy could get support from his Employee Assistance Program or call 211 to find out about programs and resources for support. The reality is that we all need people in our life during good times and during tough times. Make sure to reach out when you need help. Be open to accept help when it's offered and help others in return. So now, try to think about something you can do to make your connection stronger. Are there people in your life or groups that you could reach out to? How about others in your community who would benefit from more connections? Could you offer to make a meal for a new parent or caregiver, or maybe a neighbor who's having a tough time? Write all of your ideas down and pick one thing you can do this week to get more connected or help others get more connected. Even small things like holding the door for someone, taking out the garbage for your neighbor, bringing food to someone in need. These can all lead to big changes that can improve your connections, your physical health, and your mental health. For more info and resources on building social connections, check out havethattalk.ca. Brought to you by Ottawa Public Health with support from Bell Let's Talk. Think of the last time you...
So social connections can help us. They help us to feel like we belong, which is a big need for everyone. It helps us, as we saw in the video, to live longer and to be healthier. So social connections not only improve social life, but also help us physically and mentally improve our life. Social connections cultivate resiliency after hardships are experienced. So it increases our happy meter, and that's what we're trying to do here.
So it's important to understand that social connections are important, but what are some ways we can cultivate and establish social connections? It's kind of hard right now because we're in such a isolated and secluded time of our lives, but there are possible ways to still connect with others. You can join support groups. You can FaceTime or Skype. Having the real person, as close as real that we can get, and seeing the person's emotions and facial expressions help with that social connection. You can take a class. Classes are a great way to meet others. Even if it is online, you can still connect with your classmates. If your children are in school, joining the PTA and going to those meetings helps you connect children's friends' parents, and just being able to connect with who they're connecting with on a daily basis is helpful. You can have virtual coffee dates, a time where you're on a Zoom call or on a FaceTime call and just talking like you would in person, but it's through the phone. You can also have Zoom dance parties. This is a really fun way to connect family members of all ages together.
As parents, we need to also teach our children how to form social connections. And how do we do this? By forming social connections. We are the model for our children. We provide the example of how to be a friend.
Now that we all understand that social connections are important and it's our job as parents to help our children learn how to connect socially, we need to find out some activities that we can do with our children to build social connections. I picked up a ball and I said, okay, we're gonna play ball, but we started implementing telling stories. So I would start with the ball and I would say, once upon a time. Then I would throw the ball to her. Once she caught it or picked it up from the ground, she would say, there was a little girl. And then we would just go back and forth until we were done with the story. And it was a lot of fun. You can do an emotion face match with your child. So you get an 8x10 piece of paper. The faces that you draw on the paper can be very simple. You can do any emotions. Teaching emotions to your children help them be able to identify emotions in others, which helps them form stronger social connections. So with this, you draw out the different faces, and I would start by going, okay, what does my face look like right now? And the child, if they're verbal, they could say, oh, you look sad. Or they can point, and the child can do the facial expressions, and you can point to what you think they are. You can play a board game. So right now we're home a lot with our children. Board games are a wonderful way to teach our children how to socially interact with others. You can write a message on the sidewalk with chalk to your neighbors. Write positive messages. This helps connect us with other people, letting our children know that we can socially interact with people from a distance. You can mail a letter to a loved one. So writing a letter to a grandma or a grandpa or auntie, uncle, a friend, anybody that you can think of. And the letter doesn't have to be written out with words. It can be a picture, and you can mail that off. The person receiving it will be so thankful and hopefully send a letter back. It's exciting to receive mail in the mailbox for your children.
So we see that social connections are really important for not only our emotional, but our mental well-being and our physical well-being. Brene Brown is an author of many books, one of which is Daring Greatly, that we took this quote from. She's defined connection as, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from a relationship. That is what social connections can do for us and provide for others, is to feel valued, is what we need as a human race, to be healthy and strong and resilient. So with that being said, I'd like to encourage you and have you commit to one thing you can do this week or today to help build that connection.
So thank you everybody for viewing this, and we hope that you were able to get some activities, make some commitments, and help your children and you learn how to socially connect with others so it can make your family stronger. We know that questions may have arisen, and so I encourage you to call or text a parent coach today. You can contact us at 805-543-3700, and we can be either reached through text or through a simple phone call and making that social connection. So thank you very much, everybody, and we will see you on June 4th for our live class about knowledge of parent and child development. This class will help you wade through and learn how to figure out what is appropriate advice and what is advice that I don't really need. And we know that parents get a lot of advice, and there is a lot of parenting advice out there, and it can be hard to distinguish what is appropriate and what is not. So we look forward to seeing you there. If you need information on how to register, you can go to sloparents.org and click on our class calendar. You'll be able to register from there, or feel free to text me and I will send you the link. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
See you next week. Thank you.